Welcome to the REINS Spotlight Series, where we talk with the nation's top infrastructure leaders. REINS is a question and answer app that brings you one-on-one access to the nation's top certified infrastructure experts. Today, our guest is Denise Bunnewith, AICP Planning Director for the North Florida Transportation Planning Organization. Denise is a 40-year transportation professional. She began her career in New Bedford, Massachusetts, where she was the principal planner. Ms. Bunnewith also has a BS in Environmental Design from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and a Master's in Urban Planning from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Denise, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, I wanted to first start off. What inspired you to make the leap from environmental design to planning?
Well, in the program that I was in at UMass, it was environmental design was both landscape architecture and planning. And when you went on to the next level to master's, you either went for landscape architecture or planning. And I decided I liked the planning aspects more than I did the landscape architecture. And so that's what got me started.
And what was it about planning that piqued your interest?
I had a really good professor of planning at UMass, and he was really instrumental in my going into the planning field as opposed to landscape architecture.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you've overcome over your career to get to the point where you are, and specifically maybe as a woman leader, to getting to where you are?
I think the biggest challenge is, when you're in school and you're studying planning or anything else, you have rose-colored glasses on about what it's going to be like to be in the field. And I've always worked in government. And one of the things they never teach you in planning school, and when I was going, I've been doing it for 40 years, the things they never taught you was the political aspects of planning, especially when you work in government. The reality versus what you're taught, there's a little bit of a disconnect with outside of local government in a regional organization. So it hasn't been as political as it was when I was with local government. So that's been nice. But there is always, I don't care what field you're in, whether you're in the private sector or you're in business. Well, the challenges as a woman, of course, is having to raise a family while working full-time. And I think that's a challenge that just about every woman has as a professional. I always put my family first, God, family, and then work. And I think you just have to keep that balance, in all of our lives. But work, you have to enjoy your work too.
So the architecture, civil engineering, and planning fields have been predominantly male. How, as a woman and as a trailblazer, have you overcome this?
Oh, I don't know if I've been a trailblazer. I think it's harder for women in those perspectives. I think it's harder for, I think in the South especially, for men to take women seriously. I think it's a man's world, for sure. I think if you look at the pay scale for men versus women, it is definitely a man's world. I think it's a lot harder to be taken seriously.
Now, the REINS app, I'm sure offers cross-discipline engagement amongst architecture, engineering, construction, and planning professionals. As somebody that has worked with and is familiar with each of these disciplines, do you find cross-discipline work across each of these industries to be challenging?
I think that we have to appreciate that the skills that other people bring to the table. And we have to recognize our own skills, because I think as planners, we see a different view than, say, an engineer. And we bring a more holistic view. Our contribution, for example, in transportation planning is very early in the process in my case, for roads, bridges, whatever. our view is very long sometimes and very early in the process, where the engineers are, they're designing the facility. Well, that's much, much later in the process. But we all contribute to the same project, and we have to appreciate the skills that we all bring to the table. And so we have to reach out to a lot of other communities, to a lot of other organizations who have a lot more experience with their needs. And so I think we're just learning all the time. And challenges is what makes our jobs exciting. And I'm excited for the people that are coming, because in the next 20, 30 years, it's going to be so exciting to be in these fields.
Now, as somebody that's worked with these professionals from these different fields, would you say that there are benefits to communication amongst the different fields? And as a sub question to that, has there been a specific instance in your career that you wish, you were working on a project and you were like, oh, I wish I could talk to an engineer about something that, I don't know about, or talk to an architect that, I have a silly question that I don't want to ask out loud, or something like that?
Mm-hmm. As we see these new technologies coming along with automated vehicles and electric vehicles, and I think there are a lot of opportunities coming to speak with people with a lot of different backgrounds. So I think we will see. I think we're going to see our cities being built differently, buildings being differently, buildings being repurposed. So I think there will be opportunities for some of that cross-pollination and really rethinking spaces and places and buildings. So I think there will be a lot more opportunities to do that.
Now, you had mentioned that at UMass, you had a professor that inspired you to go into planning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What do you feel is an important characteristic of being a good mentor to other professionals?
I think that we should love what we do. And if we're not happy doing what we do, we should be willing to think outside the box and think, maybe I'm not in the right place for me at this time, and be willing to look and see, what can I do? I have a skill set. How can I use it better? Maybe this isn't the right place. Maybe my skills aren't appreciated where I am, and just really think of it like that. But at the same time, I just see everything that's coming, and I think, oh, it's such an exciting time in the years to come. I really think there's going to be a lot of change coming in the next 10 to 20 years.
So actually, let's elaborate a little bit on that. Could you tell us, in your professional opinion, the next 20 or 30 years in the future of planning, what do you see changing? What are some good things and maybe some bad things that you see?
Well, I think electrification of the fleet is going to be a game changer. I think, it's going to be cleaner. I think, for air quality, it'll be a lot better. I think that, automation, I don't think automation is going to happen in 10 years, but as time goes on, I think we're going to see automation of the freight fleet for long haul trucking. I think that's going to be a game changer, and eventually we'll see more and more automation. I think it's going to be a real opportunity for people with disabilities and the elderly, making travel easier for them. I think, the aging population, people like me, when you get old, you really fear losing your license, and knowing that maybe travel won't be such a barrier when you get older, I think that's encouraging.
Absolutely. So, you have impressive experience. A lot of REINS users are young professionals and college students. If you could give them one piece of advice, either in terms of like what they should, like career moves or knowledge they should acquire or skills they should get, what advice would you give to them to be successful in the planning field?
I would say never on some of this information that's coming out, but there's a lot of good information that's coming out. Don't just get stuck in your little rut, whatever you do, keep abreast of what's happening. That's what makes it exciting for me.
Great advice. So now, before we let you go, Denise, with ahead of you, Denise, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
For more interviews in the REINS Spotlight Series, and be sure to follow the REINS app on all of our social media platforms. Thanks.